How to protect your healing with Stoicism. Dealing with people who don't respect your growth. When healing isn't the end, it's just the beginning of a new test. You've been through the chaos. You've felt the pain that made you question your worth. You went through the silent grief of being hurt by those you once trusted. And still, you chose to heal. It wasn't easy. It took courage to confront old wounds, maturity to stop reacting the same way, and a deep commitment to never again be a prisoner of what once broke you. But just when you start to feel stronger, something unexpected happens. People around you begin to act like nothing has changed. They push your boundaries. They challenge your silence. They provoke your calm. When you say no, they call you cold. When you distance yourself, they label you selfish. When you set boundaries, they say you've changed, and not in a good way. Suddenly, your healing becomes a threat. And this is a silent kind of pain, because now, the challenge isn't just to recover from old wounds, it's to protect the new ones, the ones just beginning to close. This is where Stoicism becomes vital. It doesn't just help you survive pain. It teaches you how to stay whole in a world that tries to pull you back into pieces. It teaches you how to be firm without being harsh, how to stay calm without being passive, how to protect your peace without losing your humanity. In this video, we'll explore the real, rarely talked about challenge of maintaining your emotional integrity after healing, especially when others don't respect your growth. We'll talk about boundaries, emotional manipulation, outside judgment, and most importantly, the quiet power Stoicism gives you to stay free, even when the world wants to chain you back to your past. You are not alone, and this message is here to remind you of that. Part 1. Your healing threatens those who never saw you free. There's an uncomfortable truth that few dare to say out loud. Your healing won't always be welcomed, especially by those who were used to your wounded version. The one who stayed quiet, said yes to everything, tolerated the unacceptable just to keep fragile relationships from falling apart. To them, your strength feels like defiance. Your silence feels like rejection. Your self-respect feels like arrogance. But why? Because some relationships, without realizing it, are built on silent imbalance. When you begin to heal, you disturb that structure. What was comfortable for the other person becomes uncomfortable. You're no longer as available. You listen to yourself. You say no. You place boundaries. And for those who relied on your emotional compliance, that feels threatening. But this is not selfishness. It's self-respect. Stoicism teaches us that virtue begins within. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What is not good for the beehive cannot be good for the bee." The opposite is also true. What poisons the bee, what quietly destroys your soul, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, also poisons the world you live in. Your healing may feel like rebellion to those who only knew how to relate to your pain. But this isn't about confrontation. It's about finally being whole. This phase is even harder than the healing itself, because now you're not just rebuilding yourself, you're doing it while others try to invalidate your growth. Their glances, their sarcasm, their silence, they test your foundation. But Stoicism reminds us, you don't need to be understood to be free. You don't need to be accepted to be authentic. You're building a new way of existing. And though it may disturb others, it's the closest you've ever been to your true self. Keep going. Part 2. When respecting your boundaries is seen as coldness. One of the hardest parts of emotional healing isn't knowing what you want. It's holding firm when others start calling your boundaries too much. You've learned to say no. You've stopped explaining everything. You no longer accept invitations out of guilt. You walk away from people who once drained your energy. But now, some people are starting to push back. You've changed. You're so distant. Why are you so cold now? But what they're really saying is, you're no longer available to be emotionally used. For a long time, you tolerated things that hurt you because you were afraid of being seen as selfish. You stayed quiet to avoid conflict. You said yes when everything inside of you screamed no. But now, you've learned something powerful. There is no peace without mutual respect. And love without boundaries is just control in disguise. Stoic philosophy teaches us to act with integrity and with discernment. Epictetus said, "It's not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." That includes the guilt you feel when others are uncomfortable with your growth. Setting boundaries doesn't make you cold, it makes you healthy. And holding those boundaries, even in the face of emotional manipulation, requires self-compassion. Because yes, it's painful to disappoint people you care about. But abandoning yourself just to be accepted, that's a deeper form of pain. Stoicism isn't about shutting down. It's about standing tall. It reminds you that true strength is silent, consistent, and rooted in principle, not reaction. You're not being harsh, you're being honest. And those who truly love you will learn to honor your new truth. Part 3. Emotional sabotage disguised as concern. Some people won't attack you directly. They won't scream, insult, or humiliate. They do something more subtle, and often more dangerous. They use the language of concern to make you doubt your healing. They say things like, "I'm just worried about you. Don't you think you're taking this too far? You're isolating yourself. That's not healthy." At first glance, it sounds like care, but underneath the softness, there's something else. An emotional strategy that tries to undermine your new strength. It makes you question your clarity. It plants seeds of guilt. It tempts you to go back to the version of yourself that was easier to manage, easier to manipulate. Often, this doesn't come from bad people. It comes from people who are simply uncomfortable with your change. People who lost emotional control over you and don't know how to relate to this new version of you. But here's the Stoic truth. Not every concern is genuine, and not every opinion deserves your attention. Seneca wrote, "It is more civilized to make fun of life than to bewail it." That's not cynicism. It's emotional clarity. When you heal, you must learn to filter what enters your mind. Not every voice deserves echo inside you. Not every suggestion is wisdom. And not every relationship should continue just because it's familiar. Protecting your emotional integrity means developing discernment, learning to listen without absorbing, to acknowledge without surrendering, to remain open but grounded. The most dangerous kind of sabotage is the one that comes with a smile. But Stoicism trains you to see beyond appearances, to recognize intent over tone. Not every doubt they place in you is yours to carry. Not every advice is meant to build you. Some are designed to pull you back into the very chaos you fought so hard to escape. You're not obligated to shrink just because someone's uncomfortable with your light. Stay sharp, stay grounded, stay free. Part 4. The new loneliness. When you grow and they don't. One of the most painful and least talked about effects of inner growth is emotional distance. Not by choice, but by consequence. As you evolve, you begin to realize that some people you once felt deeply connected to no longer fit. It's not that you don't care about them. It's that the conversations no longer nourish you. The environments start to drain you. The emotional dynamic that once felt like home now feels heavy, outdated, sometimes even toxic. This loneliness is different. It's not about craving company. It's about choosing not to accept any company that costs your peace. And yes, it hurts. It hurts to realize that your new version no longer aligns with the people who once mattered most. It hurts to see relationships fade, not because of conflict, but because of incompatibility. It hurts to feel like you're moving forward while others are standing still, or worse, trying to pull you back. But this pain is maturity. Stoicism prepares you for this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs." This includes change. This includes letting go. This includes making peace with the fact that not everyone will walk with you through every phase of your becoming. You are not responsible for dragging anyone with you. You are responsible for walking your path with clarity and virtue, even if you must walk alone for a while. You will feel nostalgia. You will grieve. You will question. But you must not betray yourself to preserve connections that no longer respect who you are becoming. This new kind of loneliness is temporary. It is the space between what no longer fits and what is yet to come. And in this space, Stoicism becomes your companion. Quiet, steady, loyal. Don't fear being alone. Fear becoming who you no longer are, just to stay accompanied. Part 5. When they judge your growth, without knowing your journey. Few things cut deeper than being judged by people who know nothing about your journey. You've done the inner work. You've faced memories that once broke you. You've chosen to heal, to change, to become more conscious, not out of pride, but survival. And now, as you walk with more clarity, more self-respect, and more calm, people begin to label you. You're so different now. You've become distant. You think you're better than everyone. But what they don't see is what it took for you to get here. They didn't see the silent battles. They didn't sit with you in the dark. They didn't witness the tears, the relapses, the rebuilding. Now they look at your transformation and feel discomfort. Not because you're wrong, but because they don't understand. And maybe they don't want to. This is one of the hardest parts of healing, staying loyal to your new truth, even when it makes others uncomfortable, even when they misinterpret your peace, even when they try to shrink you back into who you used to be, just so they feel safer around you. But Stoicism offers a compass. Epictetus said, "If someone speaks badly of you, do not defend yourself, but say, 'He obviously does not know me well.'" This isn't arrogance, it's wisdom. It's the maturity to not spend your energy trying to convince those committed to misunderstanding you. Your healing is not a performance. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need validation. It just needs to be protected by you. You are not here to please old expectations. You are here to live in alignment with who you are becoming. Judgment is easy. Healing is rare. And you, whether they see it or not, are doing something courageous. Don't explain your transformation. Embody it. Part 6. When they test you, just to see if you're still the same. After you start changing, the tests begin. Sometimes they're subtle, sometimes painfully obvious. People from your past, even those who claim to care, begin to test your growth. Someone uses that same tone they always did to belittle you, just to see if you'll still stay silent. Someone reappears with familiar promises, to see if you'll fall for the same story again. Someone provokes you, just to watch if you'll explode like before. These are not coincidences. They are emotional rehearsals. They're waiting for you to go off script, back into your old roles, your old reactions, your old wounds. These tests are not always malicious, but they are real, and they are dangerous, because they try to awaken triggers you spent months, maybe years, trying to deactivate. Why do they do this? Because your new version disrupts old dynamics. Your calmness unnerves those who fed off your chaos. Your silence irritates those who relied on your emotional availability. Your boundaries confuse those who were once used to your compliance. But this is where Stoicism becomes your armor. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, 'I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness.'" That's not pessimism, that's preparation. He's not asking you to expect the worst. He's asking you to be grounded enough not to be surprised by it. These tests are not about them, they're about you. Can you remain centered when provoked? Can you choose your principles over your impulses? Can you stay aligned with your new values, even when no one applauds? Your emotional stability is not a performance. It's a quiet revolution. You don't need to respond. Your silence is your strength. Your peace is your answer. Your consistency is your proof. Let them test you. Let them watch. Just don't let them break what you rebuilt. Part 7. The price of freedom is daily perseverance. Many people think emotional freedom arrives like a lightning strike, sudden, powerful, undeniable. They imagine that once you have a moment of clarity or make a bold decision, you're free. But those who are truly walking the path know, freedom isn't an event, it's a daily choice. It's easy to be strong in moments of crisis. Harder to stay consistent when the pain fades and the old comfort whispers again. The old habits, the familiar voices, the temptation to explain yourself one more time, to give just one more chance, to say yes. Not because it's right, but because it's easier. This is where many people fall back, not because they're weak, but because they confuse freedom with relief. And relief, when it means abandoning your boundaries, can become your new prison. Stoicism teaches that freedom begins in the mind. Seneca wrote, "As long as you continue to admire what others have, you will remain a slave." Not just to material things, but to approval, to validation, to being liked. When you base your sense of self on external applause, your healing becomes fragile. Your identity becomes negotiable. But when your freedom is rooted in principles, not popularity, it becomes unshakable. You chose to walk away. You chose to stop pleasing everyone. You chose to rebuild from within. But the real work begins when you're tired, when no one is watching, when it would be so much easier to go back to who you used to be, and no one would blame you. That's why Stoicism calls for discipline, not coldness, not numbness, but self-leadership. This is not about being perfect, it's about being persistent. Emotional freedom is not earned once, it is earned every day, and every no you say to what used to break you, every limit you uphold, even when it's hard, every silent moment of clarity you protect, is a victory. A quiet, sacred, powerful victory. Part 8. You don't owe loyalty to your old self. There's a subtle but dangerous trap in the process of transformation, feeling guilty for changing. You may feel like you're betraying who you once were, letting go of routines, roles, or even people who once felt like home. And to make it worse, others remind you, you've changed. You're not like you used to be. You were nicer before. But here's the truth. You don't owe loyalty to a version of yourself that was born from fear, pain, or survival. Stoicism teaches that life is constant transformation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." You can honor your past without being bound to it. You can respect who you were without carrying that identity forward. You can feel gratitude for old connections and still choose to walk away. Some people stay in unhealthy patterns because they think leaving them means erasing their story. But letting go isn't betrayal, and it's evolution. And staying stuck out of guilt is just another form of emotional imprisonment. You're not required to keep playing a role you've outgrown. You're allowed to redefine yourself. Yes, you'll miss parts of who you were. Yes, some people will mourn the old you. But if that version of you was built on self-abandonment, on silence, on emotional compromise, then it's not something you should preserve. It's something you should release. With love. Real loyalty begins when you stop betraying yourself to be liked, when you stop apologizing for becoming more whole, when you start choosing what's aligned, not what's familiar. You don't owe the past anything but understanding. Your future deserves your full presence. Part 9. Not everyone will celebrate your healing, and that's okay. There's a quiet expectation that many people carry when they begin to heal. That once they evolve, others will cheer for them. That those close to them will notice their growth, appreciate their strength, and support their change. But reality is often different. Not everyone will celebrate your healing, and some will even walk away. Precisely because you healed. It sounds cruel, but it's real. Your transformation disrupts the comfort of others. Your clarity exposes their confusion. Your boundaries force them to examine their behavior, and instead of rising with you, they retreat, or worse, they criticize. You've become arrogant. You're too serious now. You used to be more fun. But what they don't see is the cost of your healing. They didn't watch you struggle to rebuild. They didn't feel the nights you couldn't breathe. They didn't witness the small victories that took enormous inner strength. And now, when you finally begin to walk in alignment, you're met with distance, judgment, or silence. This is where Stoicism becomes your anchor. Epictetus reminds us, don't seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happens the way it happens. Then, you will be happy. That includes rejection. That includes being misunderstood. That includes people leaving when you finally start loving yourself right. You are not responsible for making others comfortable with your evolution. You are responsible for protecting your peace. Stop expecting applause. Start honoring your alignment. Some people cannot recognize your healing because they've never started theirs. And that's okay. Your job is not to be understood. It's to be honest. And in time, the right people will recognize you not for who you were, but for who you chose to become. You don't need a crowd. You need peace. Part 10. Protecting your healing is the highest form of self-love. Getting here took courage, but staying here, in this new version of yourself, requires even more. Because healing isn't the end of the road, it's the foundation of a new life, and that life still needs to be protected every single day. It's one thing to recognize what hurt you. It's another to keep saying no to it, especially when it comes disguised as affection, nostalgia, or comfort. This is what real self-love looks like. Not the kind you post on social media. Not the surface-level slogans or staged affirmations. The real kind. The kind you practice in silence. When you walk away from conversations that would drain you. When you resist familiar temptations that once numbed your pain. When you choose your peace, even when it costs you company. Stoicism teaches that the highest good is virtue, not validation. Marcus Aurelius said, "The object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane." In a world where chaos is normalized, your inner stillness is rebellion, and this stillness must be guarded, because many will try to pull you back into who you used to be, not because they hate you, but because they don't know how to meet the new you. That's not your burden. That's their journey. Your responsibility is to keep living in truth, not in fear. To build connections that don't require your self-abandonment. To remain gentle but unshakable, present but protected, open but aligned. Your healing is not a phase. It's a commitment, and maintaining it is not selfish. It is sacred. Because no one else lives inside you. No one else carries what you carry. No one else knows how deeply you once broke and how hard it was to rise. Protecting your healing is not an act of ego. It is an act of wisdom, of love, of inner freedom. And that freedom doesn't need to be explained. It just needs to be lived. Now that you understand healing isn't just about overcoming the past, but protecting what you've rebuilt, a deeper question begins to rise. How do you protect your emotional integrity without shutting people out? How do you stay true to your values without becoming closed off? How do you remain open to love, connection, and presence without falling back into old patterns? In the next episode, we'll explore exactly that. You'll learn how Stoicism can help you build conscious relationships, stay emotionally free, and connect deeply without losing yourself again. If this video resonated with you, leave a like and subscribe to the channel to keep walking this path of healing, strength, and stoic clarity. Tap the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. And share this message with someone who's protecting their peace, quietly, bravely, and alone. Your healing is sacred, and protecting it is part of your freedom.